Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner Podcast. I'm Dylan. I'm your host, joined by my blue collar badass Matt. What is up, man?
It's a fantastic day here in southeastern Michigan. We're punching out and closing out a big project, so it's a fun but busy week here.
Dude, I feel you. It's been one of those weeks for me too. Everybody seems that they want to have projects done this week. Whether they have the right material and information or not, they want to get design out and done here by the first. Guys, we have an amazing guest. We'll do some a little more chit chat here, but we have an amazing guest for you today, Luke Marcotte. He is the owner of Electric, which is an electrical subcontractor that he founded back in 2014. We're super excited to have more and more people come on the podcast that are in the trades, that are running their own companies, and that can provide great experience and insight to this wonderful industry that we love to call construction. So Luke, welcome to the show.
Guys, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. I've been watching you guys' shows the past couple weeks, and I love the value you guys are bringing, and excited to be a part of it.
Awesome. We are glad you're here, sir. So Luke and I met about a month ago now. We had coffee not far from my home office, and I got to tell you, Dylan, his story is pretty badass. Luke, if you want to kind of jump in and just give us a rundown of where Electric came from and how you started it and kind of where you're at today.
Absolutely. So I'll go all the way back to the early days. First off, the first question most people ask me is, how did I get into the trades to begin with? And it's at the same time as when Electric, or the idea for it, got birthed as well. And so I had two best friends growing up, but they lived about 40 minutes from me. And so we wanted to go fishing every day after school and on weekends. And so my mom didn't want to drive me back and forth all the time. So instead, I just ended up staying there all the time and almost living with this family. And this family was very well off, lived in a beautiful home, and their dad owned a plumbing company. And so I started just kind of learning from him, watching from him, like what he did. He'd work 7 days a week. You don't have to do that, but he just did. He loved it, and he took pride in it. And it was for the first time in my life I seen a blue collar worker take pride in what they did, love it, and like tell people how great it was. And he told me how great it was. And he told me, he's like, you don't got to go to college. He's like, look what I got. He's like, if I told you the amount of money that I made, you'd shit yourself. Like, it's just it was just a really good upbringing, and I lived there for 6 years basically. And so when it came time when I was 16 years old, I realized that's when I needed to start making some money, because I had to pay for everything in high school, like phone, gas, insurances, truck, clothes, food most of the time, all that. So I'm like, all right, I need to get to work instead of just sitting in class. And so I had an option. I was going to go into the trades is what I decided, but I'm like, what should I become? I wanted to be a plumber to start with so I could be like this guy that was my mentor. But then I remember him telling me that if he wasn't a plumber, he'd be an electrician. And if I was an electrician, I would get to work on jobs with him, and he could help me get my business going. If I was a plumber, I'd be his competition, and I wouldn't get to work on jobs with him. So that's the only reason I have an electrical company. Otherwise, I'd probably have a plumbing company, right? So that birthed the idea for it. And even for like Christmas, my birthday, from the time I was 14, 15 years old, I was asking for Klein electrical tools, so that way I can start building up my tool pouch and be ready to hit the ground running when it was time for me to go. So yeah, and then I basically knew I was going to have my own company pretty much my whole life. I've had businesses here and there my whole life, whether it's wood splitting or buying, fixing, flipping trucks. And so it was just a matter of time now for me getting the licenses, the experience, building up the tooling, the funding, the credit, all of that to start my company. And so really in 2014 is when I really started doing projects and really started like getting my feet wet while I worked for other contractors. And I'd say 90% of my experience is in big commercial industrial. And that's what I really wanted to aim for, like especially in the long run, longevity of the company. I want it to be a big company across the country that does big, amazing projects, the ones where you drive by and you say, yeah, we wired that building. So that's basically how it started, from nothing all the way up until getting into the trades and starting the business basically at the same time. So I've been in it since I was 16.
It's pretty impressive to hear a story where somebody starts a business, especially in a trade-based business at that young of an age. It's not it's not the most common path, especially these days. So, we talk about it a lot here, but it's great to hear and to see it come to fruition. Somebody who, you gave the college thing a thought through, and it wasn't what you wanted to do, and you've made a absolute killing out of it doing it your way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell people this not to brag, but to hopefully inspire other people who are in the same boat. I was a D-minus student. I wasn't a great student at all. College, I had thought about it. I'd explored routes. I thought maybe going for marketing to whatever company I opened one day, then I would be able to utilize that. But it's just school was not for me. I was not good at it. I couldn't sit there and I couldn't realize justify putting in all the work without getting a reward out of it. That's why I never really played sports either, because if I'm going to work that hard, I'd rather get paid off of it. And so that's why, instead of going to football practice, I'd leave at lunch, and because I did school to work, I'd leave at lunch and go work. I'd work 40 hours a week on top of high school. And I'd show up to school in my high-vis shirt, my construction pants, ready to go, boots. And that's what I did. Everybody knew me as that guy. So yeah, school's not my thing, and so no use putting effort and energy into it if that's not where I even wanted to go. And I seen someone else out here that showed me the shining light of what it could be in this path, and that's where I wanted to go. So I took his advice and I ran with it.
That's awesome. There's a couple things I want to pull out of there. One, you had a mentor, right, and had somebody to look up to earlier in life, right? You had a nice example of what life could look like, if you put in the work, put in the time, and went through it. So I think that's first and foremost, one of the big pieces of this is that you had somebody to kind of set the foundation for everything that you're going to do moving forward. The next thing that I want to ask is if you did you ever take any shop classes or anything like that in high school, or any welding or anything with your hands?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the shop class, my school didn't have shop class. It was a small school. I grew up in a town of about 2,000 people, 2,500 people. And so my graduating class had 75 people. So since it's such a small area here in northern Michigan, around the Grand Traverse area, is they have this thing called the Career Tech Center. And all the schools around the area, they bus halfway through the day for the people that want to go to basically trade school almost. And so you're able to do that your junior and senior year at all these schools in the area. And so I opted to do that. And so I chose the electrical program, which thankfully they had. Otherwise, I would have done just a basic construction course. And so then I would get on a bus, I'd go there, and I started learning that way. Now, again, like I said, school wasn't my thing. So I did that for maybe 6 months before going and actually getting an apprenticeship job. But that 6 months, the little things I learned there, from the code book and all that, put me years ahead of other people. But I was just so ambitious. I needed to get going now. So it's I still went there 2 days a week. I think I had to for basics classes and to get my credits basically. But the other 3 days a week, I would get to go and work halfway through the day. So yeah, I had a trade school in high school that I got to go to. So it worked out really well.
That's awesome. Now for everyone out there, walk us a little bit through in going and getting an apprenticeship. If because some people might think you have to be 18 to go and do that. What are there any other requirements, anything like that in, for anybody out there, or that maybe has a friend that's looking to get into the trades, right? Did this later in life, or even through this high school path, right? To where you're, 16, 18, right? Haven't graduated or anything, but you're looking to get in, you're looking to start getting your hours and all that stuff so that you can build up for your licenses. What does that path kind of look like for everybody out there?
Yeah, so I actually do a lot of social media stuff on Instagram and YouTube, explaining how to get into the trades, because that's a question I get a lot, is how do I even get started? Most people don't know. And for me, I didn't really know either. Technically, you're supposed to be 18 is what the world's telling you, I guess. So I didn't really want to abide by that. I was just too hungry. I needed to go now, especially because, like I said, I had bills I had to pay. I've had a credit card since I was 16. On a little side note, just so I could start building enough credit so I could buy my first house at 18. And so I've had bills and all that stuff since I've been 16. I had to get a job. So what I did is I literally just printed off resumes. I once started knocking on electrical companies' doors in the area. A majority of them told me no, said it'd be too much of a pain. I go, okay, well, here's where it comes into the fact of learning how to leverage connections. I had a really great connection with my fifth grade teacher, and I recognize I have a great memory too. I remember way back when that they had a company working at the school called her last name Electric. And I messaged her. I'm like, hey, are you related to these people? And she's like, yeah, it's my cousin. I'm like, would you mind like talking to him, see if I can get an apprenticeship? They're like, yeah, it's like I guarantee you'll sit down and talk with them. I'm like, sweet. So I went in there, interviewed him, and obviously once you get in front of people and if you like have the charismatic whatever you want to call it, like you get in there and you talk to them, they'll give you a chance. And it's easier than them just saying no over the phone or on email. So anyways, he's like, yeah, sure, we'll give it a shot. And it was just a small company, just two guys working there. And they let me come in after school and help. And then they would even let me come in on weekends and help. And so that's how I got my foot wet and started in the electrical trade. Now, what I tell people is do something very similar. Even if you're in high school, out of high school, if you're 20 years out of high school and you're in your 40s, I don't care. Literally just go talk to companies, go talk to people, knock on doors, bring a resume, whatever you got to do. Just talk to somebody. And I guarantee you there's someone out there that's willing to give you a shot. So it's as easy as just going out and talking to people and trying to land yourself a spot and just say, hey, I'm motivated. I want to do this. It's not that I have to be here. It's I want to be here. And that'll go farther than most people ever imagine.
Yeah, that's huge. And learning how to leverage your network, learning how to leverage relationships, that's the single best way to get your foot in any door. I don't care what door it is.
Absolutely.
So Luke, now that you've run this company for what, seven years ish now,
Yep.
How many employees do you have currently?
So we have 10 right now, and then we're hiring probably 4 more in the next month at least. And then if not more after that, and probably 5 because I've realized I really needed like a secretary now because answering the phone and email is just way too hard for me while I'm trying to do everything else. But I mean, I imagine we'll be upwards of 20-25 by the end of the year, and we got 10 right now.
So are you still pretty fully engaged in all aspects of the company until you get some help anyways?
Yeah. So I don't do a whole lot of the hands-on work anymore. Sometimes I go out on weekends, more times than I should, still try to do it, or even late into the evening. So one of the mindsets that my mentor that owned that plumbing company instilled in me was the first 40 pays the bills, the second 40 buys the toys. So like work 80 hours a week. And so I seen him work 7 days a week the whole time I was there. He was in his 50s, made tons of money, but he still went and worked 7 days a week. He took pride in it. So I took it on myself to do the same. And I just kind of like built habits out of it. So now it's like if it's 5 p.m. and I'm sitting there and I wrap up all my office work and there's a job just down the road that I go do some stuff on or line up stuff for the guys tomorrow, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to run up there. I'm going to get it all put together for them. I'm going to do a few things, just help progress things. So still trying to cut back from trying to work so much. But yeah, I'm doing everything except the field work is about the last that I do now.
Okay.
I think that still having so I run cross engineering, right? And doing big commercial projects. What you find over time is that the principals, the owners of a company don't know how the sausage gets made anymore, right? That's what you run into. So having your hands still touching, still like connected to the work, to how things get made, to how things get done is hugely important. So often in design firms, especially because of technology, of how things get created, how drawings get put together, how buildings get modeled, it has changed drastically in 20 years. So when they came in, it's hand drafting, right? 20, 30 years ago, still hand drafting, then AutoCAD, then Revit, and 3D, and now there's a ton of tools, and we build automation tools. But through that evolution, right? If you're a principal who's 60 years old, right, at 40, 20 years ago, when you probably left the day-to-day work, it was hand drafting. So now over the last 20 years of you not being a part of a project, it has changed so drastically. and you haven't touched anything, right? You don't care how it gets made, right? Other than it gets done, that you're disconnected from it. So I still think a dabbling, if you will, or a touch back into it, a walk-in of job sites, of laying things out, of doing that. But it doesn't have to be like every day. It doesn't have to be every week, but it does have to be on a fairly regular basis to where you remind yourself of of what it is. And then to help, that also helps as owners, as executives, as everybody out there in those leadership and, doing other types of work and not the production work. It reminds you how to get things done and what your people have to go through to, deliver a product, whether that's on the design side, whether that's a building, whether that's, putting in switchgear, whatever that, thing that your company is delivering. It's great to maintain a relational working relationship with how things are done. And so often I think that gets forgotten as people move up the chain, up the ladder within an organization. They forget how things get done or what it takes to get done, and lose all like reference of time and expectation.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. I couldn't agree more. In fact, I remember when I was an apprentice, so after I left that small company after 6 months, that was the first company, I went for a large firm, and they were like, to put into perspective, I was the 68th employee when I hired in. And when I left 2 years later, there was 150 some employees, I believe. So it's like a fast growing, big commercial industrial only company. We pulled like huge 600s. Like we were on projects that were $10 million projects and things like that. And one of these projects was a really big project, and we had tons of fun there. Still the funnest project I've ever been on in my life. And so the owner of the company, the president, and the head project manager, they both were talking about coming to the job, putting their tool belt on for a Saturday and working with us. Like nobody'd ever heard of this, nobody'd ever seen these guys work type thing. And we were all pumped. Like I was like, oh, I can't, like I had a great relationship with the owner of the company. I'm like, I can't wait to like see him with his tools on and just like run circles around him because he hasn't done it in 30 years or whatever. But anyways, they never came and did it. And so it's like that was kind of a bummer to us. And we're like, man, like that would have been really cool, even just as far as like a respect standpoint from all the workers there. Not that they need our respect, but like just picture how much that would pick up the workplace vibes and like the culture of the company and everything like that. So I've always kept that in the back of my head, and I always jot these things down when I see them through my apprenticeship. So that way, when I'm at that position with my company, I don't make the same mistakes. So even when we're at a few hundred employees, I'll be sure to go out on the job site and help them out on Saturday and tell them I still got it.
It's hugely important because you keep a pulse that way on your whole organization. And up until very recently, I did the same thing. I'd be out there on Saturdays digging holes or driving bobcats, doing whatever had to be done. I'll be quite candid. In the last year, we hired a really good superintendent, so I haven't had to do that nearly as much. But I still get my ass out on that site 2-3 times a week. I'm still there. I walk around with him. But on top of that, I am very big in our subcontractor relationship. So I'm constantly chatting with our electricians and our plumbers and our carpenter and everyone across the whole site, because once you lose that pulse, then you're just an asshole in the office. And
exactly. You're just a suit at that point.
You are, and your job sites will show it, right? I mean, there's a different culture, there's a different vibe out there when people are working, and you show up and you haven't been there in 6 months. Everyone kind of clams up and they don't know what to do. But when you're there regularly and they know you, not necessarily as a friend, but as a coworker, really, because on a big site like that, we're all coworkers at the end of the day.
Yep.
It just helps, I think, with the overall vibe, the overall culture of any project.
I believe so too. Absolutely.
Yeah, in there, it's so much to walk around the office, right? So in like design firms, to walk around the office. For construction firms, your office is the job site, right? Like to go out, see those people, and do that on a regular basis. I couldn't tell you how many times. So in one of the design firms I worked in, we had multiple offices and they had board meetings in our office every month. None of the board members ever walked around our office. Like none of them. I mean, they didn't know And we were a company of 100 people. It wasn't like it was crazy. And in our office, there was maybe 40, right? It would not have been hard to walk around, to say hello, to, just show a face, right? But that didn't happen. And in most of the design firms that I've worked in, that never happened. And the culture shows, right? And it permeates through everything. So having that connection, having those relationships, and then, for, like Matt was saying, to go out, if you're a general contractor, I mean, basically anybody on the construction side, to form those relationships with all of your subs, all your partners in the business. And then the other thing that I would suggest, that I've suggested it when I worked in design firms, and this is actually going to be the first time that I talk about it here, is as a design firm, we never really formed as good of relationships as we should have with our construction partners. So, and across the board, right, we'd work with all of them, especially of size, but to have get-togethers, to do more things as a construction industry in whatever town, whatever city that you live in, to get together, whether that's even just at the young professionals level, right? People that are just starting in the industry, to have those get-togethers, to know people, like, yeah, this buddy works over here at this construction company or this contractor or whatever. And having those relationships across all the bounds, you see that community within most of the contractors, because, I mean, again, they're all on the same job sites. They're all working on the same projects together. And I think the more that we could bring that connectivity, that, hey, we're all in the same team type mindset, to more and more communities, to have design and construction. I mean, just like we're doing here, right? To have more of these dialogues, these conversations across in a casual thing, right? It could be happy hours, it could be whatever, very simple, inexpensive, everyone pays for their own drinks, right? Type of events.
Yeah, exactly. Just get to hang out and all.
Yeah, that bring everybody together. And I think, this is going to be something I want to talk about more frequently, just as we've been doing this and coming across. I think that this relationship, these, as much as we hammer on relationships, it's doing it in informal times. It's building it in, at a happy hour, right? And maybe it's virtual, maybe it's not, but to get together with partners, right? That's what we all are at the end of the day, from design to construction, up and down the chain, right? That everybody gets together, and you're going to learn something at those events, right? Whether it's how to design better, how to build better, whatever it might be. That's something that I'm talking about now. I'll continue to talk about, but I think more in it for everybody out there, right? To do these in your city, in your area, and to get more of these kind of informal relationships, happy hours, right? Who doesn't love a cold drink at 5 o'clock on Friday, right? I think you'll get some people to show up at that point.
Hell yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be expensive, right? Miller Lite goes a long way.
That's for sure. Yeah, and like topping this off, or what adding to this, is the value of relationships that you build through all this. And like, there's a little story that you guys will like. So after I left that smaller company, when I first started with, I realized I wanted to go and do bigger projects. So I researched companies in the area that did big projects, and I found this one that I knew I wanted to be a part of because it was newer, had fast, big growth, which is what I knew I wanted to do with my company. So I figured I could learn a thing or two from them. Like I said, I was a 60th employee when I left, and they were only 4 years old at that point. 2 years later, when I left, they were over 150 employees. And so I printed off the resume for this place. I do what I do, and I basically told God, I'm like, hey, I want to go work at this place. And then I was going to go in Monday and talk with them to apply. On Saturday, me and my friends went ice fishing, and then I see this company truck at the boat launch of this lake. I'm like, my time to shine. And so I grab my resume and I literally go across this frozen lake and I start knocking on ice shanties. So, hey, you're from this company? Hey, from this company? I'm just talking to everybody like, no, get the hell out of here. And I get to this one shanty. He's like, that guy over there owns the company. He's my cousin. I'm like, jackpot. So most people would be scared at that point because they're like, oh, this is a big wig of a big company, whatever. And I said, screw it, I'm going to talk to him. I mean, it's just, to me, I see him like as another person, although a very successful and respectable person. It's like, I want to learn from this guy, so I'm going to talk to him. So I go knock on his shanty. He's like, how the hell do you know about this? Like, how old are you? I'm like, I'm 17. He's like, show up Monday. You got a job. I'm like, wait, I'm still in high school. Got it. It's like, it's a pain. I understand. It's like, but I do school to work. So I leave at lunch and I come and work the rest of the day. Like, but any Saturday and Sunday you need me late, I'm your guy. And so he's like, I don't care. He's like, show up Monday. You got a job. And so from that point on, me and him had a great relationship. Like I would stop by his office every time I went to the shop and I would talk to him for a few minutes about fishing and all this stuff. And like, there's been times where I was fishing down at some pier here and he showed up and we went to the bar to have dinner together. Like I got invited to his house to have a euchre party or euchre tournament and all this stuff. And so like we built these great relationships, and every day I went to work, I did not want to let that guy down because I seen him as my new mentor, just like that guy of the plumbing company. And I would do anything to not let these guys down. So I worked like crazy, and like I always went the extra mile to make it happen. But one thing I noticed is that like although I could talk to him like he was almost a friend, when he came to job sites ever so often, everybody else would be scared of him and they'd be scared to talk to him because they just haven't seen him before, like what you were saying. And so that's why I'm tying it back together now. And so it's like other people, they'd be like, whoa, it's like, you could talk to him? Like, you have his number? Like, you know how to talk to him like that? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I built this relationship with him. So it kind of blew my mind that other people didn't think they had that same kind of access to him. But why would they think that? It was just never portrayed anywhere and nobody's ever taught that. So I was one of their best apprentices, but some people told me not to brag. But it's like the reason why is because I always went the extra mile because I knew him personally. I knew the other project managers personally because he introduced me. And like he would tell the same story to them every time he would introduce me to someone in the company. And so it built a great relationship. And I did not want to let any of these guys down. I worked 10 times harder for it. And I guess it kind of showed. So definitely it's worth it to build those relationships with people. And I was brand new apprentice, 17-year-old at this point, right? So it's like, even though it might not be someone leading a big project, someone it might not seem like it's worth your time to put time and energy to as like an executive now, it certainly is worth it because that person sees that and they work harder as they come up through the ladder. So
it's so powerful. I mean, you just nailed it. It can open doors for you that you wouldn't even be able to imagine.
absolutely.
So I'm going to shift a little bit here. Luke, I'm not going to lie. You're one of the more positive people that I've probably ever spoken with. And we've talked a few times now. But I'm going to call your bluff on it a little bit because I know you're in construction and it's not all sunshine and rainbows out there. So what would you say has been your most challenging aspect of owning your company so far and being in the field you're in?
Definitely had a lot of challenges. Absolutely everywhere there is a challenge, I pretty much hit it and had to overcome it. I mean, it's definitely been no walk in the park. It's that zero part of this has been some kind of gravy train where it's like a smooth sail. So, you know, like it goes in levels for me. So like when I was first starting, it was hard for me to buy tools. I didn't have the money for it. So then I just started doing jobs here and there. And like for people that knew me throughout the years, just growing up in a small town, they'd have me do little projects here and there. And then from there, as we started to get bigger, I'm like, okay, well, I have money now. It's because I've been working 120 hours a week by myself. So I got the tools, I got the money to fund the projects. Now, how do I get more projects? So I ran into a marketing issue. Like, okay, I don't know how to market it all. And so that would stump me for 9 months to a year or something like that. And it's just like, okay, well, now I figure out how to market and network and build relationships for the long term. So even if you don't get work now, maybe 2 years down the road, you get the opportunity to do some work with that person. And then you go into a sales thing, and it's always like one after another, just constantly building off of it, each of these little skill sets as you grow. And it's like an ever turning revolving door as you go up different levels. And so, but all of those have been trials, tribulations, all of that. But the hardest thing, I guess it's probably been, is the same thing other people run into, is motivating people and getting people into the trades, and also motivating people who have been in the trades to continue to try and do more instead of just leveling off and trying to teach people how to learn more and things like that. So, I mean, that's something everybody runs into in any kind of construction business, is the people, because that's like, this isn't something where we're selling a bunch of stuff. It's where we're selling labor of these people. So the people are the asset, they are the value, they are the greatest resource, if you will. But it's just trying to get yourself in a mindset that even though they screw up a job when they probably should have known better, you have to be like, okay, how do we fix it without pissing them off, making them quit or firing them and things like that. So it's always the people that are the hardest part, but it's also the most rewarding when you put the time and energy into it and you see that flower blossom at the end. You're like, wow, that person definitely leveled up. They're going to like a whole nother game that they couldn't imagine. They make new income, they make better life. It's great seeing people that you helped bring up to that next level. But it is certainly a pain, and the hardest part I would say about that is the people that you have to learn to cut off too, where you can't save everybody. And so unfortunately you wish you could, but at the end we're all responsible for our own faults, our own successes. So the people that don't realize that and they want to keep pushing it off onto other people, you have to be like, hey, sorry, I did what I could, so see, we're moving on to the next person. So that's been a lot of hardships.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. We've dealt with the exact same thing, the same scenarios, and it is the hardest part of it. I think is the human aspect of it, and
Yep.
you learn very quickly as a business owner that you're not just running a construction company. You're also a counselor, a psychologist. You're doing so much more than just estimating jobs or selling jobs, and it can hit you kind of blindsided if you're not ready for it. I know it did that to me. In my mind, my background, it was just easy. I'm going to go out and build shit. And this is what I've always done. Well, now that there's other mouths that I'm responsible for feeding, that changes right away.
Absolutely.
One of the things too that I think we always forget about in construction, or we have maybe a little warped sense of, is taking responsibility for things. Nobody wants to take responsibility for anything because that means they got to pay for it somewhere. But the more that we can own through a project, the more that we can take on, the more we're going to benefit from it later. And it's going to suck in the moment if something's like really, really bad, but you're going to get found out at the end of the day anyway. It might take a couple of years and a lot of court proceedings, but it'll get found out, at the end of the day anyway. So a lot of this is to try to, take ownership of, your piece, your part, what you can do to help, and to not just point fingers, but to come up with solutions. Because at the end of the day on a project, if you can come up with a solution, yes, it might cost the owner more at the end of the day to fix it or whatever. If you have a solution and not just problems, everyone is going to feel so much better about it, and you're less likely to get sued at the end of the day. It's really what it amounts to. This is like bedside manner for doctors, right? Like that could screw something up, but if people feel good about it, you're going to more than likely, everything will be smooth through the rest of the process. So to own it, but not point fingers, but to have a solution, pricing, all that kind of stuff ready to go so that you can present a solution and solve the problem. Because at the end of the day, the owner just wants to open their building. And we got to remember that, right? Get everything moving forward, open the way it should, and to move on. And that ownership just helps so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I go back to even when I was just an apprentice. Like I'd say you learn to crawl, then you walk, then you run. Learn to crawl when I was an apprentice. And you mess things up when you don't know what you're doing on a job site sometimes. So a couple times I'd mess up a little thing here and there, and then the foreman would come in and he'd be like, hey, who did this? I'd be like, that guy over there, I didn't do it. And then they're like, hey, he said he wasn't even working in this room. Like everybody says you're the only one that's in the room or something. Like they're like, oh, you get caught with your hand in your pants. And you realize that's not a good situation. It don't make you look good and nothing. And so let's say nobody had caught it and it went through, somehow passed inspection or whatever, or even failed inspection. And when you get to a point when the contractor is supposed to turn it over to the business owner, homeowner, then it's be like, hey, why is this electrical messed up? Why is this room messed up in this apartment complex? And the contractor isn't going to say, well, one of our apprentices messed it up and didn't tell us. He's going to say, sorry. It's like, it's our company, it's our name. So I learned I had to take responsibility for it then and just man up to it, say, I'm going to fix it. If I didn't know how to fix it, please show me how to fix it so I can. And then same thing, the foreman's going to have to answer to the project manager, and the project manager is going to have to answer to whoever's above him, with a vice president or a president. And so you have to take responsibility of it. It's not really as much as like you should. It's kind of like you have to, because you can burn your reputation just by not taking responsibility of it. Even if you mess something up, it should happen. We all know that. But take responsibility of it and just fix it, make it happen. And that can even increase your credibility, I guess, because people are like, hey, it's like he didn't beat around the bush. He didn't try to blame it on the plumbers over there for hitting his conduit. They realized they didn't bury the conduits deep enough, and nobody double checked the electricians or whatever. So, yeah, it's just like you have to take responsibility. Although a lot of people push it off, it's just I got caught with my hand on my pants too many times, and I don't ever want to be there again.
It absolutely speaks to your credibility, though, and it's probably the same in most industries, but in construction especially, mistakes have monetary values associated with them generally, and that stings, right? When you know that you just cost yourself or your company or your boss, it doesn't matter if it's $50, but it stings. And when it's 60 grand, that stings real bad, and that hits your ego. Your ego gets bruised like you would never imagine possible.
Yeah.
But you got to own it. And that's how you move forward. And if you don't, you get caught with your hand in your pants, or you get caught, and it's a real bad scenario for you at the end of the day. You own it though, and you move forward. You learn from it. You sure as shit never do it again. That's how this whole process has to work.
Absolutely, yeah. And like a good story off of this is, after I left the big company I worked for another smaller company, and I strictly did like custom homes. And so I did it because I wanted to learn how to do homes. It was like 10,000 square foot plus up here in northern Michigan. I wanted to learn that, so I went to this company now. And I was like, at this point, I'm full on foreman. I'm running jobs, I'm estimating jobs, project manager basically, and especially for commercial industrial, because the people at this company didn't know anything about it. And so, anyways, I'm rewiring a pizza place in downtown Traverse City, and they have a pizza oven, like with stone oven, like one of those really cool ones.
Yeah.
I'm hooking it up, I'm wiring the place and all that, and then we go and we test fire and everything. And all of a sudden, we turn on this $60,000 pizza oven, and it goes boom. Like, oh shit, what just happened? And so I'm freaking out. I test the voltage, and it's 208 or 277, because then there's a high leg in certain three-phase systems, and the panel wasn't labeled as a high-phase system, and since nothing else was plugged in the building, nothing exploded on the certain circuits. And for those who don't know, there's A, B, and C phase. B phase is a high leg on that kind of transformed system, and so the one circuit that was on that B phase happened to be that pizza oven, $60,000 piece of equipment. And I go there and I'm like, holy crap. Like, and I'm 19 at the time. It's like, I'm a 19-year-old project manager. I'm already doing more than I should be doing. And I just exploded a $60,000 pizza oven. First thing I did is I called my boss. I'm like, hey, just so you know, I exploded this thing. I'm like, but I know how to fix it. I'm going to figure it out real quick and I'll call you back. And so I ran around town and I bought like different motors and stuff to replace it. And I basically rewired this pizza oven and we got it back up and running. And like the owner of the pizza place was there too. And it was used, so there was no warranty. So we didn't have to worry about that, or else we would have gone a different route. But still, I replaced it, got it all working, changed the circuits back over, got everything off the B phase. Like, all right, we're good. But imagine if I would have just said, oh, yeah, we just exploded a pizza oven. I didn't do that. Someone else did. Like, I would have been fired right there. And, like, that guy probably would have sued the electrician company. That guy only had 6 employees, so it probably would have put him out of business. But just by taking responsibility and going and take initiative and not wasting time or waiting, I just went and fixed it, went after it, and everything was good. Still got paid, so...
Case in point, man. You nailed it.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't do that, but it was a good lesson. Yeah. We were lucky on that one.
Wow.
And I think it goes to the whole point of being optimistic, right? Being like grateful, having some gratitude on a lot of this stuff, and to just be optimistic. If you know, like, hey, there's a solution to this. We build things, we fix things, right? There's a solution for everything. And to have that optimism through your projects, it's going to go, one, it's going to go a long way. Right? Two, you're personally going to be probably promoted faster than everybody else because you're good to be around. People want to work with you. Your reputation gets built, all that stuff. And then three, right, you find solutions, right? If you're optimistic, you're always going to find a solution to whatever problem you're working through. And that goes a long way to moving forward, and your willingness to learn, right? So if you're optimistic, if you're looking for solutions, then you're willing to learn, you're willing to grow, you're willing to get through something, which also hits on like training. That most people, training is one of the highest ROIs you can ever do, right? Like especially in construction, right? We're getting paid for what we know, for our knowledge, and then the ability to execute that in the field. So like you talked about not knowing things, right? And it's going from apprentice to master electrician, right? You learn more as you go through that. And training is something that gets so undervalued, undersold across, I think, any industry, any company, but especially in construction, is that continuing education, the ability to continue to learn, continue to use new tools, technology, whatever it might be. But just understand that training is one of the just highest ROIs that you can do because we're such a people-based industry. So I just want to put that out there that like as you move through the ranks, as you move up to companies, like don't forget to continue to train your people or go through trainings, and not just like the lunch and learns that nobody ever likes, but actual like, real world hands-on training.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, I've done training for everything. Like I got addicted to the mentor mindset, if you will, back when I started living with that one guy who was a plumber, So like he basically trained me how to even get into the trades, how to succeed in the trades, how to start a trades company, etc. And then from there, I realized that I was outgrowing his knowledge. So then I had to go to the owner of that bigger company and use him as a mentor so I could learn then how to operate systems. And I have like all these like systems that are basically copy and pasted from their company, which is like job codes and estimating and things like that. I just ask questions. And so like you learn from these people. And so I'm using that as training. And then you get to a point where you're a business owner now. And that's where you join things like Arate or Apex and other like masterminds. It's like, okay, well, that's training for us. But then you also need training for the people that are doing the electrical work. And so like luckily here in Michigan, you have to have training for you to start your electrical apprenticeship. So you have to have a training just to even start it and be through your apprenticeship. So that's good because then you can utilize that as an excuse even to do training, teach people more, and become a more competent, qualified electrician and learn more of the science behind it instead of just saying, yeah, I can run conduit from point A to point B. It's like, no, I know why we're running this conduit and we're derating it. We find it in Annex C for how many conductors you can find inside that conduit. So that's very valuable stuff, and I believe everybody needs to not only be taught it, but also reminded it often, because sometimes you might not pull 600 kc mill feeders to a bust duct for 3 years, and then when you get back there and you have to run cable tray for it again, you're like, oh, what happened? Like, no. So if you have constant reminders of it, then yeah, you're gonna always be on your toes and ready to go for it.
So I think we're kind of coming up on time here, Luke. So I'm going to ask you the big question that we ask everybody. Right. What do you see as the biggest issues facing the construction industry today, and how do we fix it?
Again, the people. That's the biggest thing. Like I said, that's 90% of what any kind of construction company or construction industry is the people. And so what's wrong with the people? Well, not really that. I don't think it's even wrong with the people. I think it's on us. I think it's on the contractors, everybody that's in the trades and above people that aren't in here. And so we have to take on ourselves to fix these things. But we have problems with people trying to get into the trades. We have problems with people trying to excel in the trades and actually develop a real career here. A lot of people, they might even get into the trade for 4 years just to make enough money until they have an opportunity to get into some other job. When they don't realize that there's more opportunity here if they would just put the same time and effort into this. And so we need to focus as the leaders of this industry to train these new people, show them the opportunity, showcase what it's capable of. Like, I want to get Ford GT one day. I'm going to show people that. Say, hey, I was an electrician. I was a D- in high school. I didn't go to college, and I have this car. Like, that's like what I want to do. Most people would say, oh, I don't want to be flashy. But guess what? That plumber's house that I grew up at, he lived in a beautiful custom home on one of the most beautiful rivers in the country. Like, the lake that it connects to is actually voted third most beautiful in the country. And then he had 2 houses down each way that were rental houses on the river. It's like, okay, that's pretty cool. That's something pretty like impressive. And then not even as a business owner, the people that are in the trades, there'd be some guys you'd see would show up in a 2000 Ford Focus that's rotted out and they live in a trailer. Nothing wrong with that. And then you'd see some people, they'd show up in a brand new diesel pickup and they have like a great family and they have a beautiful home they just built and a pole barn and all this stuff, like the whole tradesman dream, basically. And then you're like, wait, how did you get that? And then you talk to them and they'll be like, oh yeah, I'll show you now that you asked. But it's like, these people really need to do a better job. These people being us, showcasing this kind of stuff, showing like how you got this through the trades and how to get into the trades and how to come up through the trades and scale and climb ladders. So like I said, the biggest problem I believe is the people that need to come in here and find the opportunity. But the problem with it is that we need, and how you fix it is we need to be the ones to take it on ourselves and fix it. Show them that, teach them that, take time to teach them, even if it's sitting them in a classroom for an hour a week or every other week or once a month, and just show them how to climb the ladders and become better foremen, apprentices, anything like that. And so, yeah, I guess that's what I think.
I love that, man. That's probably one of the more thought-provoking answers that I've received on that question, to be honest with you. But you're so right. And it does fall on us. And I actually had that exact same discussion with my business partner recently. And, you know, if we have somebody on our ranks that fails or that leaves or that we have to get rid of, 100% of that blame is on he and I as the owners of this company. And that's the way we have to approach these things. And I'm glad you said that. It's eye-opening to hear other people say it too. But I think you're right. You know, as leaders in this industry, we can talk about it all day long, but we got to do something about it. And we're the ones that can do it.
Yeah.
That's why Dylan and I are doing this show. You know,
Absolutely. That's why I do my Instagram and YouTube stuff as well. Because like, you go talk to any tradesman, any trades company in the world, in the country, whatever it is, and they're going to say, yeah, I just can't find nobody that wants to work. Nobody wants to work these days. That's a quote everybody throws around. Really? Well, why would they want to go work for you? What? Like, you literally, the only thing you say is nobody wants to work for you. If you tell me nobody wants to work for you, I'm probably not going to want to work for you either. It doesn't sound that great. But now if you show them what you can get off of the work that you can build and what you can build, the kind of career and life you can build off this company, yeah, that's going to sound pretty cool. I'd like to come work there. That's why, like, two problems I said that we've never had at Electric is getting work and finding people to do the work. Literally, I can't fund jobs and fund projects and fund equipment fast enough to take on all the projects and put people to work. And it's new people, it's experienced people. Like, my goal with this company is I want to be across the country with it. Big company. And I have people like in San Antonio, Texas, and California, and Las Vegas, and Utah, and Pennsylvania, all these places that are like ready, gung ho to like put a crew together and start a branch there, ready to go, that are like qualified for it. They work for other companies as project managers and they want to do that. And so, like, I have no problems getting people into the trades. People reach out to me daily trying to get into the trades and how they should like buy their first tools and like find an apprenticeship and which trade they should start, things like that. I have zero problems with it. But it's because if you ever watch my Instagram, it's because I'm always active on there. I'm showing people how great it is. I'm showing what you can build out of it. I talk about the experiences I've had and the stories I have. And so people are like, yeah, that actually sounds kind of cool. I'd like to try it. Instead of saying, yeah, nobody wants to work these days. They're all lazy. So got to take it on yourself.
100%, man. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you really get what you put out. But Luke, where can people find all this great stuff that you're putting out on Instagram, YouTube? What handles should they look up to go and find you?
Basically everywhere is at Luke C. Marcotte. So YouTube, that's that. And Instagram, same thing. And then I'm here on LinkedIn as well. So getting more active on LinkedIn, but I'm like active 99% of the time on Instagram. I usually post daily stories on there, just stuff that I'm going through and like little ideas I had. And even if I've had to like sit down one of my foremen and talk with them, like a serious talk, I'll share what went on in that talk so other people that have the same problem learn from that as well. So
I like it. I follow you. I'm going to keep doing it. I learn something every day, man.
Thanks.
Awesome, guys. Well, Luke, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show here. I think the big takeaways that we can all have is really take pride in your work, right? Go out there,
Absolutely.
take pride in what you do, be optimistic, and you get what you put out, right? If you put out positivity, if you put out good things, if you exude optimism on your projects, people are going to want to be around you. People are going to want to come to work for you. They're going to want to do good work. They're going to want to go the extra mile, versus if you say that nobody wants to work here, we can't get anybody, our people suck, right? Like, you're going to effectively manifest that in your life. And so many end up doing that, right? If you only see problems are the only thing you're ever going to get. If you only see solutions, well, life becomes a lot easier if you just see solutions. Any last words, Luke?
No, I think that's all for me, other than just thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Glad to have you on, man. And hopefully we can do it again someday.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Awesome, guys. Well, go follow Luke. Go bring somebody else into the trades, into construction. We need more great people. And then to talk about how great this industry is. We're doing it here, but we can't do it alone. We need everyone out there to really talk about how great an industry construction is, the beautiful things that we build, and really the world that we live in is all done through, our designs, our builds, our execution, and we couldn't have it without construction. So we need more great people into this industry, and it's on all of us to bring them in. So that's this episode of the Construction Corner podcast. Until next time.